Let me begin by stating that the extent of my game playing has primarily been restricted to the sports I've played, card games, and the odd board game. I never fully embraced video games as a child or as an adult. That being said, what James Paul G discusses in this webcast doesn't necessarily specify the type of games we need to begin employing in our educational settings to engage our students and enhance their learning. He provides us with several compelling insights on the inevitability of what education must become if our children are to learn, what they need to know in order to compete for the jobs of tomorrow, and the role that games of any kind can and should play in the change. G's narrative revolves around the idea that innovation, creativity, and collaboration are the skills the students of today need to develop in order to qualify for tomorrow's jobs. Unfortunately, today's schools and classrooms with the sage on the stage design are not well suited to teaching our students these important skills. As G states early on in his talk, learning facts without learning how to problem solve is not worthwhile. This way of educating is on its last legs. It has to be. As a solution to the current educational conundrum, G points to games as tools that can and will teach our students how to create, innovate, and collaborate. All the while, students will be having a great time, not even realizing that they are engaged in learning. It's pure genius when you think about it. I really enjoyed the part of his talk where the idea of learning how to do chemistry by playing the game of chemistry is discussed. Like any game, you would first try playing the game of chemistry by doing it dash. Let's be honest, in order to get started playing a game, you might learn a few rules and just start. It is unlikely that one would read the game manual prior to starting the game. As you play the game, you begin to learn terms, what works, and what doesn't work in the game. What you are doing is essentially learning how to do the game of chemistry. As you move through the game and you wish to advance, you then begin to refer to the game manual, aka the textbook. Miraculously, the textbook makes a lot of sense at this stage of the game. You now have this context of how to play the game and the terminology the game uses, which makes reading the manual a heck of a lot easier than it would have been if you tried to read it before starting the game. This is another example and illustration of what genius it is to teach through the use of games. This concept of learning real science by doing science and using the text as the manual for doing the science makes so much sense. Sadly, this is not how the schools of today are designed. Normally, we're at the text first, and often, it makes no sense to us. We are then left to attempt to try doing whatever it is we just finished not understanding in the textbook. This is certainly what my experience was when moving through school, and it's a good bet the big reason I never went anywhere in science. If I had a teacher that offered an innovative way of learning science when I was trying to learn chemistry and physics, chances are I would have carried on in those areas. I didn't, so I didn't. This brings us to G's final and perhaps the biggest idea of the webcast. If the competition heats up enough, and if the will, desire, and need arrives at the point we need it to in order to educate our children so that they can compete on a world stage, we may just see the change in our system that needs to occur. Teaching and schools need to be made cool again. The ability and authority to create a curriculum that will teach our students how to innovate, create, and collaborate has to be returned to the teachers, instead of being in the hands of politicians and policy makers. If teachers can create a passion for the subject matter, and different types of learning environments where students and teachers work together to solve real-world problems, the necessary change in the way students learn and are taught can happen. It's already beginning to happen, it just needs to happen in all subject areas, in all schools, at all levels. Games may not be the singular answer when it comes to driving this shift, but they certainly can, and will, play a significant role. With all the things games can teach, including the constant assessment going on while playing, games in educational settings can go a long way in preparing our students to compete for the jobs of the 21st century.